Welcome. Scott here. I will be covering on the current 8th boss rush event, Finis est Initium. There is new character LD for the event and most of them are returning LD units. The synergy units for the fight are Leela, Purim, Gilgamesh, Kate Sith, Shelka, Aiko, Lulu, and Priyash. Sorry for the delay as I am busy with work lately. There are also a lot of research that needs to be done before I can come up with the video guide as well. Firstly, let's recap the rules of the boss rush. This is the first LUFENIA Plus based boss rush. As such, in order to get the full rewards, you need to complete the very hard plus version of boss rush with a maximum of 4 parties. Bringing the characters that I have mentioned earlier, the party will receive synergy stats. So, try to spreading them out into different teams. Throughout the fight, there will be an action counter of 30. Any brave, HP, skill, AA, call or BT finisher will count towards to the 30 count. Burst and summon phase do not count toward to the 30 count. Allies on a team cannot be used on later teams, however calls can be used across multiple teams. Summon must be unique to each team. Inflicted debuffs are reset once you have swapped teams. LUFENIA Orb count and boss recast remain the same after swapping teams. You can reuse your ultima weapons for each party. For example, you can equip an ultima weapon on Titus in Wave 1. You can re-equip that same ultima weapon on Terra or any sword character in the subsequent parties. Since there is an actions restriction for boss rush, it is best to abuse off-turn damage mechanics. Characters with traps, counters and follow-up will do damage even it is not their turn. Removal of speed passives can be strategically useful for certain characters. Now, let's proceed with a quick overview on the LUFENIA Plus Orb conditions for the entire boss rush. You will be fighting 3 waves of enemies for the boss rush. For Wave 1, you will fight 2 Optimus. They are immune to attack down and lock debuffs. To uptick the orb, you need to deal 400k damage on a unit's second consecutive turn or deal 10k brave damage to the boss. For Wave 2, you will fight the Dark Bahamut. It is immune to freeze and attack down debuffs. It is also immune to any debuffs that prevent action. It can summon a Penelo Manikin to assist it for the fight. To uptick the orb you need fulfill either one of the following conditions. 1. Use an ability that allows you gain 100% max brave in a turn. 2. Deal critical brave damage to the boss. For Wave 3, you will be fight 2 Elvorets which are immune to any debuffs and receives no damage from earth elemental attacks. To uptick the orb, you can just maintain your HP regen or extend a buff. You can also uptick the orb with holy enchanted off-turn damage. So, spread out your synergy units among various parties for the fight. Before I go down to the details of each individual wave, I have done a summary recap of the fight. Usually, I would do this at the end of the guide but there are some aspects that I feel it will be more beneficial for you guys to know first before you start the fight. On this screen, you can see a table that summarizes the general items that you need to consider before setting up your parties for the fight. I have also included how you can spread out your synergy units for the fight. I think I have missed out someone in the list though. For the entire boss rush, the bosses are immune to breaks as their brave will never drop below 1% of their max brave. For Wave 1, you will be fighting 2 Optimus which has 14 million HP each. The fight will feature no brave gains for the fight due to the permanent defense posture stance, which requires you to break it. Units that offer brave floor like Ursula and Vaughn with BT auras or Iroha for her unique brave consumption reduction mechanic can allows you to withhold some brave to withstand their brave attacks. You can also use shield units to protect your party. As the subsequent wave features non-summoning phase, it is advisable to bring launch calls so that you can charge your summon gauge faster that you can use it in this wave. If able, try to save your burst phase for the next wave. Avoid units that relies on brave gains. To handle the LUFENIA Orb, you need to bring units that have instant turns and you just need to deal 400k HP damage on the following turn. The boss will have massive brave gains at 69% and 39% HP thresholds. For Wave 2, you will be fighting the Dark Bahamut, which has a whooping 37 million HP. This is the hardest wave for the fight, so bring your strongest party here. Other than the summon phase being negated, the boss is immune to launch, freeze debuff and any debuffs that prevent action. The boss will summon a Penelo Manikin at the start, 79% and 49% HP threshold. The LUFENIA Orb will appears when Bahamut's recast gauge is maxed. Bahamut will autofill its recast gauge at the 79% and 49% HP thresholds. When the recast gauge is full, Bahamut will gains additional immunities like delay and turn deletion immunity while emitting a red aura. To defuse it, you need to max out the orb conditions till it reaches 15 or above. To uptick the orb, you need to deal critical brave damage or have an ability allows you gain 100% of the character's max brave. Once the orb is diffused, Bahamut will warp its turn after the unit that diffused the orb. It will gain 2 additional turns. Due to its massive HP pool, it is highly recommended to bring HP damage up calls. To handle the warp mechanics, it is also advisable to stand by some damage mitigation call for the fight. For Wave 3, you will be fight 2 Elvorets which has 22 million HP each. They are immune to all debuffs. Avoid bring debuffs reliant units here. This is the easiest wave of the trio. The boss will use Summarize Power for every 6 party actions you take. Summarize Power will raise the potencies of its Tower Dark Wings buff. At 5 stacks, you probably won't be able to finish the fight. To uptick the orb you need to do either holy damage via off-turn damage like follow-up or just simply use a buff extension ability. Once the buff reaches 2 stacks, the boss will start to insert their turns in between your party. This is a harder than usual boss rush fight as the auras for the boss are LUFENIA plus level and they have massive HP pools as well. The score requirement for the entire boss rush is 1,060,000 and the HP requirements is 20,000. To get all rewards, you need to complete with a maximum of 4 party used. Completing the very hard plus mode will complete the lower difficulty ones as well. Okay, let's focus on the individual waves. Let's talk more about the first wave. The boss for this wave is 2 Optimus. On the screen you can see the timeline of the thresholds to watch out for. Firstly, let's go through in detail on how to handle the LUFENIA Orb condition for this wave. The LUFENIA countdown ability is fatal. The orb will be activated at the start of the fight. It will be cancelled at 79% and reappears at 49%. Every party action will downtick the orb by 2. To uptick the orb, you need to do either one of the following. 1. Deal 400k HP damage on an unit's second consecutive turn or 2. Deal at least 10k brave damage per brave hit. As mentioned earlier, the boss brave cannot drop to below 1% of its max brave. Once the boss took the defensive posture stance, your party won't be able to gain any brave. The defense posture will cause the boss gains boosts to its defense and speed, massive brave gains, and it also becomes immune to instant break. Most units won't be able to withheld unless you bring units that offers max brave floor like Ursula or have brave consumption mechanics like Iroha. To withstand the brave hits, you can consider bringing units that with brave shields like Warrior of Light, 9 or Shellgat. When the orb is active, you will see a purple counter appearing next to the orb. If the same character is having his or her next turn, the counter will increase the orb. To uptick the orb, you need to deal at least 400k damage to one of the bosses. Fulfilling the condition will uptick the orb for both bosses. I have indicated on the screen what are the units you can considering bringing to handle the orb. Let's go through an illustrative example on how the orb uptick works. Titus uses quick hit S1 and deal 150k damage. On his next instant turn, Titus uses his burst finisher on the next turn and deal 900k damage. This will uptick the orb. Titus uses quick hit S1 and deal 150k damage. On the next turn, Titus uses quick hit S1 and deal 150k damage. This won't uptick the orb as the damage dealt on his second turn falls below the target damage requirements. Let's go through briefly on the boss other mechanics. The boss will gain LUFENIA plus aura as its HP gets depleted. The lower the boss HP is, the strong the aura will become. At the start of the fight, the boss will raise its defense to 200% and at 79% HP threshold, the defense will raise to 300%. The max brave damage reduction aura is 90% and the max brave gain reduction aura is 70%. Bring supports that give brave damage up is crucial here since most of your brave gains are nullified by the boss defensive posture auras. Now let's cover briefly on the boss other mechanics. The boss will change its mode from blue to green and eventually to red as the battle progress. As the mode changes, the skill set of the bosses also changes. You need to watch out for boss recast ability Destructive Laser. The boss will use a stronger variant of it after consecutive uses. At the 49% HP threshold, the boss will activate the loading ammo where it will use full salvo on the next turn. Without any damage mitigation, that move will hurt a lot. Avoid going to wave 2 while in your summon phase. For the second wave, you will be fighting the Dark Bahamut and this is the hardest wave for this boss rush. The Dark Bahamut has a whopping 37 million HP. Upon entering the battlefield, the summon button will be disabled. Bahamut is immune to launches. It is immune to freeze and attack down debuffs. It is also immune to any debuffs that prevent action. If you enter the fight right while in summon phase from the previous wave, Dark Bahamut will use Counter Cure and followed up with Counter Mega Flare to greet you. At the start of the fight, Dark Bahamut can summon a Penelo Manikin where it has 3 million HP. The Penelo Manikin can buff its party and will use Evanescence which cleanses all debuffs on its first turn. So it is better to finish it off before it gets a turn. Bahamut will resummon a new Penelo Manikin again at the 79% and 49% HP threshold. Now let's talk about the LUFENIA Orb for this wave. The countdown ability, Mega Flare ++ is fatal. The LUFENIA Orb will appears whenever the Bahamut's recast gauge is max. It will diffuse once you have upticked the orb to at least 15. To uptick the orb, you need to fulfill either one of the following conditions. 1. Have unit grants 100% max brave in one turn. Kate's Mog Dance will fulfill that if you brought him for the fight. 2. Have the unit deal critical brave damage to the fight. I have listed down the units that can assist to uptick the orb. You can bring a unit that provides guaranteed critical rate to the party. They are Sis, Barret, Lily Set, Kate Sith and Kais. Kais will be hampered as the boss is immune to launches though. There also units have 100% or close to 100% critical rate in their kit. They are Gilgamesh, Priush, Cloud, Pain and Rude. Firstly, let's go through in detail with the LUFENIA Orb condition. As mentioned earlier, the LUFENIA will be activate when Bahamut's recast gauge is maxed. Other having its recast gauge, the orb will be activated at the 79% and 49% HP threshold. Upon activation, Bahamut will emit a red aura where its turns will be framed. It will gain immunity to delay, which also includes breaks and turn deletion. While in this stance, Bahamut will also gains post-turn brave regen as well. If you don't break the stance, Bahamut will use Mega Flare plus. If you break the stance, Bahamut will use Mega Flare. To defuse the orb, you need to uptick the orb to 15. When the condition is met, Bahamut will lost focused power. However, it will activate cut in turn order where it will warp its turn right after the unit that triggers. When it reaches its turn, it will gain 2 more turns in succession. Because of the warp mechanics, it highly advisable to bring a damage mitigation call like Warrior of Light LDCA. Activate it before you are about to trigger it. Now let's go into more in depth on the other mechanics. The boss will gain LUFENIA plus aura as its HP gets depleted. The lower the boss HP gets, the stronger the aura becomes. At the start of the fight, the boss will raise its defense to 200% and at 79% HP threshold, the defense will raise to 300%. The max brave damage reduction aura is 90% and the max brave gain reduction aura is 70%. The boss will also fill its recast gauge to max at the 79% and 49% where the orb will also get activated. Bring supports that give brave damage up and brave gain up is crucial here as you will be fighting a boss that have a massive pool of HP to shred. The Dark Bahamut has 4 types of Mega Flare. I will briefly talk about the 4 variants. The default recast ability is Mega Flare, which is an AoE HP attack. While the red aura is active, it will use Mega Flare Plus. Mega Flare Plus is a recover from break, AoE brave plus HP. It will also inflict break on all characters. Upon using it, Bahamut will diffuse the orb and remove the properties that it gains from the charging phase. Mega Flare Plus Plus is the countdown ability variant ability. If you see that attack, it is an instant party wipe and game over for your run. Upon exiting out from the summon phase, Dark Bahamut will use his counter Mega Flare where it will inflict break on all targets and AoE brave plus HP attack. This attack is a guaranteed hit attack. After the attack is used, Dark Bahamut will use counter cure where it will heal itself 5 million HP. So, don't bring forward a summon phase from wave 1 to avoid this trigger. For the last wave, you will be fighting 2 Elvoret. This is the easiest wave among the 3 battles. On the screen you can see the timeline of the thresholds that you need to watch out for. The boss is immune to all form of debuffs. If you want to use HP damage calls, make sure they come in the form of aura effects. Kate and Priyash LDCA are very good for the fight despite their short duration benefits. Firstly, let's focus on the LUFENIA Orb for this wave. The LUFENIA countdown ability isn't fatal but it has the effects of making it a potential game ender. So, I would state that it is technically fatal. The orb will appear at the 79% and diffuses at 59%. It will reappear at the 49% and diffuses again at the 29%. Every party action will downtick the orb by 3. If the character has a HP regen active, the orb will downtick by 2 instead. To uptick the orb, you need to deal Holy Brave damage with the off-turn attack. Examples of off-turn units are Sisnei, Freya, Kor, Garnet, Noctis and Kain. Just pair them with a holy enchanter like Eiko, Kuja, Ash, or Sidor and you will be able to fulfill the condition. The second method to uptick the orb is by way of buff extension. Party buff extenders like Yuna, Eiko, Sis, and Hope can be deployed. Alternatively, you can use units that could self-extend their own buffs like Queen, Titus, and Squall. Next, let's start off the briefing. Starting from the boss own tower Dark Wings buff. On the screen, you can see on the table illustrating the buff effects. The buff will get stronger as the stacks build up. The boss will use Summarize Power whenever you accumulate 6 party actions. A burst phase is considered as one action. After the second Summarize Power is triggered, the boss will activate Cut in turn order where it will insert their turn in between your party turns. This will also trigger whenever the boss use an ability when the LUFENIA Orb is active. Now let's go into more in depth on the other mechanics. The boss will gain LUFENIA plus aura as its HP gets depleted. As the boss HP gets lower, the auras get stronger. At the start of the fight, the boss will raise its defense to 200% and at 79% HP threshold, the defense will raise to 300%. The max brave damage reduction aura is 90% and the max brave gain reduction aura is 70%. Bring supports that give brave damage up and brave gain up is crucial here as you won't be able to lower the boss defenses with debuffs thanks to the boss debuff immunity. Offensive auras that raises your party attacks are helpful here. We have reached the last slide of the guide. The boss has a standard moves rotation. At the start of the fight, the boss will use Storm Breath on its first turn. Storm Breath will result the boss absorbs 50% of your party current brave, followed by a Brave gain and an AoE Brave plus HP attack. After this, it will follow up with Soul Blast, which is a single target Brave attack that inflicts 3 turn defense down debuff. The next move is the Rising Slash, a single target Brave attack which has high potencies with Brave gains in between. Immediately after that, the boss will trigger storing Brave with a 100% Brave gain of the boss max Brave. After that, it will resume to use Storm Breath and the cycle continues. The boss could use RIP, a single target HP attack if its current Brave is high. With this, we have come to the end of the boss guide. Thank you for watching the video. If you like the video, please do give the video a like. Please do subscribe to my channel for future similar content. Bye.